now that we have these new tools in there, does it make any sense to teach, you know, creative writing in the way that we've taught it before, or coding in the way that we've taught it before? Like, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make any sense, because you've got this tool. Do you just ignore it and say that the merit of writing is that you have to do it by yourself? Like, that's the only that's the only writing that matters. Or can we use an assistant? It's like, mathematicians don't just go without any tools, right? In their daily work. No, because if is it dishonorable to go to use a calculator? So I think we have to kind of get over it and see how this is actually going to make a difference in for the way that we teach.
Not since the advent of the internet and probably the iPhone have we seen such a buzz in society around a new technology. And so that has been the case in the last few months with the launch of ChatGPT and other AI related tools. And so if this conversation hadn't been going on in your world, it is now. And so it was important for me to get my good friend Dr. Alec Couros to join me and share his thoughts and insights on AI and other things digital. Alec has been a good friend of mine. We've done a lot of presentations together, and we even share, as you'll hear at the very first part of our conversation, a a, um, a connection to catfishing. Both Alec and I have been, I don't use the word victims, but part of this issue for the last decade or so. We talk about that, and of course, just getting into the whole, um, intrigue of ChatGPT and this emerging AI, which, for just clarity, is not really new, but it is new in terms of its ability to be accessible by the masses. This episode, as well as all of our episodes, are brought to you by Advanced Learning Partnerships. We serve communities across North America in pursuit of high quality professional learning. So grateful for the time I have to do and create these podcasts. This is the first person we've had from Saskatchewan. So we're moving, trying to get a cross section of Canada represented through these podcasts. And so enjoy. And also, hey, if you want to hit the like button, subscribe button, that really helps us out as well. So thanks for joining and enjoy our conversation with Dr. Alec Couros. Okay, Alec, what's new in the world of catfishing? Who's who is looking for money from you lately? What's your latest venture?
I mean, there's been a lot of that for sure. And I don't know. It's starting to trickle down a little bit, maybe. I haven't got as many frequent victims who have come forward. So I don't know if it's getting better, or the scammers are getting better at hiding it. Um, I do see a lot of, like, the unnamed accounts, or other named accounts, like accounts that aren't me, showing up, and I guess those are harder to detect. But I do notice every once in a while, when I go into my like Twitter messages, the ones that you can't read right away, like the ones that are blocked because you don't follow that person. Then
Right.
you'll see a list of like 5 people, or 10 people that have been trying to call and get in touch with you to tell you, and it's been months, so I don't even bother at that point.
Well, and I haven't been diligent too. Like I'm that way too. All of a sudden, it's like sometimes it's on Instagram. Like it's like, oh yeah, because I don't even think about, oh yeah, the fact that there's people trying to get a hold of you, but you don't follow
Right.
them, so you gotta. It's more effort to do it. So, I
Yeah.
mean,
So it's
it's funny because I look back. I got one of those memories on Facebook, where somebody had shared something to both of us, I think, a
right.
number of years ago about saying, "Oh, looks like Facebook is implementing this policy. This should solve the problem." Like, this was like
Right.
5 years ago. I was like, that
Yeah.
never happened. That never happened. But
Yeah, and I think, I've been hearing that this is going to be, worse with ChatGPT, and that sort of thing. Like, when
yeah,
we guys
yeah.
start getting into voice cloning, and being able to write proper sentences, and being able to mimic someone else's speech, or writing, that's going to be a lot worse, I think. So
Well,
I
yeah,
think it's,
I remember you sharing, and I've seen it done with me, but I think you
yeah,
you did a lot more work showing how scammers were doing this, and this is like again 5 or 7 years ago,
Yeah.
having using an old Skype video, and I mean it was very it didn't take much to detect this was fake, but of course,
Right.
this is the premise where, in most cases it's women who really, really, really want to believe this is true. And so
Yeah.
you don't have much of a threshold to overcome to get people to do it. But that's
Yeah.
actually why I wanted to talk to you today. And I know I know you bugged me about I never asked you on my show. Like you got
Yeah.
so many things, man. But this the AI stuff that's emerged, can you just maybe even give people a bit of a history of it? Because for a lot of people, it's like, oh, this just started back in the fall of 2022. And obviously, AI has been going quite a while, but that was just sort of the hello world
Oh,
moment
yeah.
in some ways.
Oh, I mean, it goes back to, like, Alan Turing and Martin Minsky, and there's a lot of and Seymour Papert to an extent. This has been going on for a long time, and I think what was interesting about some of the early theorists, beyond design, setting forth a vision for what this could be, is that it could be instrumental in personalized learning in particular, and which is interesting for that time. Like, the tech didn't really exist, and for the most part, when I see a tool, I'm able to, like, at that second, conceptualize, from 5 minutes ago, that I just learned something that this would be really cool in teaching and learning. But I've never been to the point where, like, if there only was a tool that did this, then I could, it's sort of like it has to exist before I can even envision
Right.
what it could possibly do. And so there have been a number of people who have, theorists who have been talking about this for a very, very long time. And this GPT piece, this is GPT-3 that this Chat GPT is based on. So it's a language model that's like it's kind of third edition, I guess. And there's, they're already working on four, and they're worried about releasing four because it's going to be even more powerful. And technically, GPT or Chat GPT is built on 3.5, I guess. And 2 days ago, they released the API to like OpenAI released the API, which means that any company could now use it or integrate it into their tools. I think Snapchat is starting to use it. There's a sort of a short list of companies that could, and that's the thing. This is going to be integrated into everything. But again, as going back, it's not a short time coming. It's been around for a while. It's just getting to the point where it's being recognized and used, and to a level that is very consumer friendly. That's why it's in Bing already, and
Right. Right.
you'll see a lot more of those integrations soon.
So, I mean, and as you were sharing before we hit record, like you've got a lot of institutions that are, looking to you to say, like, hey, well, how do we deal with this? Like in terms of the sort of their policies and plagiarism, that is, has been sort of the quickly emerging issue for educational institutes. And of course, we can see, and with deep fakes that have been around now for a while, not so much as a consumer tool, but we a lot of people understand the
Yeah.
potential. What are sort of the other imminent sort of, let's talk about the imminent dangers first, and then we'll talk about maybe some of the positive side. But like, what are some of the imminent dangers beyond sort of education's challenge with kids copying work?
Right. Yeah. I think for the most part, institutions are focused on kids turning it in, or young adults turning in work that's not their own. And this goes back to plagiarism, and the turnitin.com thing, that they're able to detect plagiarism. And it was used as a deterrent, essentially. Like turnitin.com, or tools like that, allow you to detect plagiarism, but unless you've instituted governance and policies and pedagogies around plagiarism, it's going to continue because there's always ways of working around these tools.
Right.
And that's the same with Chat GPT. If you I learned from younger kids, teens that are friends with my kids. that it's really easy to go in and generate something in ChatGPT and then throw it into Quillbot, which is another paraphrasing tool, and you basically wash out the AI. So these tools aren't going to be super effective, but they are, GPT zero, the one that was a detection platform that was invented by a 22-year-old student from the University of Toronto. That's always already going to be integrated into the university LMS. It's already in Moodle. Like you can integrate it if you choose, if your institution chooses, and it's going to be integrated into Canvas and Blackboard and Brightspace and the other ones as well. So those things are going to be there. But the more imminent threats, obviously this is not going to be easily fixed just through detect or through technology. It's going to be something that we have to deal with more structurally, and from a teaching and learning perspective. Like, now that we have these new tools in there, does it make any sense to teach creative writing in the way that we've taught it before, or coding in the way that we've taught it before? Like, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make any sense, because you've got this tool. Do you just ignore it and say that the merit of writing is that you have to do it by yourself? Like that's the only that's the only writing that matters. Or can we use an assistant? It's like, mathematicians don't just go without any tools, right? In their daily work. No, because if is it dishonorable to go with to use a calculator? So I think we have to kind of get over it and see how this is actually going to make a difference in for the way that we teach, but essentially how people use this in the wild beyond university.
Well, and thinking itself is obviously a priority of what it is that we're trying to do, and
Yeah,
being able to be a good thinker uh, isn't necessarily an isolated task. And I think it also comes down to our tie to assessment practices, which has been essentially to always focus on assessing the individual in
yeah,
terms of like you can do this like without any supports or with supports or whatever it may be.
yeah,
And yet at the end of the day, when it comes to the way in which we work in the real world, if you will,
yeah.
outside of school, we don't people don't care. Like just get like, so if you're in marketing and you use Chat GPT to help generate content
Right.
for you, like no one's gonna care, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, just like we just need this done. So that I think that's always a part of I think always the biggest part of the discussion is, well, how do we evaluate kids? Right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
like it's like, yeah, that I get it, but if we're teaching kids how to think, there's it's a more complex and integrated kind of approach that we have to take. So how have you been just talk a little bit about how you've used it in maybe a playful way, but also a professional way. Like what are some things that have you found already being like, oh, that's an interesting approach that's helpful for you?
Well, I think when it came out, I threw every single scenario at it. Like I was writing, getting my 8-year-old to tell me a story that you've always wanted to hear. And he wanted a dinosaur um, that made the world extinct through his farts or something like that. Like it was something silly like that. Of course, from an 8-year-old. So
Yeah.
playing with things like that. Um, and but I threw in like every scenario. I tested to see what it would do. Whether it was creating short stories or poetry. I think I put in like write a limerick around about Tiger Woods, and it was probably one of the most racist things I've ever seen. So it's got the capacity to
Yeah.
do things like that, and it did it in a really sly way. But on an everyday basis, like I almost feel like I couldn't do without it anymore. It's when I'm writing emails, I do the sort of the basics and throw it in, and it polishes it up a bit. So just to clean up my writing and make it a bit better. Uh, One of the things I did I was for an external examination, so someone was doing their PhD. This is a massive 350-page document, and so I spent like a week reading this thing and coming up with good questions for the defense. And then I thought, maybe I'll throw parts of this into ChatGPT and see what it comes up with in terms of critique. And the questions were way better than the ones that I did. And I was thinking, like, this would be a fantastic tool in the future, even for a student to say, like, I'm going into a PhD defense. What if I throw this in and it'll help me anticipate what kinds of questions or critiques that,
Yeah.
like for self-writing. So it doesn't have to be for the external necessarily, but for and that's why I think some of these people, the early theorists, were talking about this in terms of personalized learning. Like I can just throw something in there, and I can generate questions and get instant feedback, like an instructor couldn't give you right away, because we know that feedback to be useful has to be quick and detailed, right? Like it's got to be something that you can do in the moment. You can't wait 3 weeks for the grade and a little bit of feedback. You're not interested and it doesn't matter to you anymore. So this is one of those things that provides really quick feedback. But so that, and whether it's assessing things, helping me write student reference letters. You can throw it in the nuts and bolts of all the things that you think are important, and it'll write a nice letter for you. And this, to me, has saved a lot of this sort of administrivia time that was taking up a lot, and it allows me to do other things and those things deeper. I think, which is great.
Well, yeah, and I think that's always been a big promise of technology. And I mean, I think even of the evolution of search. I remember, when search first came out, boy, you taught people like you have to
Yeah,
do it this way, and using Boolean searches, and this doesn't work, and
yeah,
people just wanted to be able to just talk with normal language. And Google
yeah,
has obviously led the way in allowing people just to use everyday language to find what it is they need to find.
yeah,
They didn't have to understand uh, the semantics that the search
yes,
engine really wanted you to say. Now it's still helpful to know a little bit, have that little context.
yeah,
Um, but this is certainly along of helping it. Um, so besides Chat GPT, there's lots of it's what struck me as, I don't know if it was weird or whatever it was, and I don't know if all of these other non-text tools are based on Chat GPT, but now of course there's a proliferation of
yeah,
whether it's Midjourney and all of these other image, video tools, audio tools, and so I don't know if people are just rebranding tools that had been out there as part of the AI revolution, or if indeed some of these new tools are really new, fostered by OpenAI.
yeah. So OpenAI does, like, the ChatGPT or the GPT family isn't necessarily related to like Dolly, the image, or Midjourney, for instance. So there are image generators that the Dolly project is out of OpenAI, but things like Midjourney are sort of outside of that. So these are tools that allow you to, with a prompt, create anything that you'd like. So, and something that's never, like, I'm looking on the page right now, like there's create a avocado armchair, or a I can't even be creative enough to explain, like, just put
Yeah,
create something that you've never seen before. Dean Shresky playing basketball with blue pants or whatever. I even put
I've
my
done
name
that
in it,
before
knew
though.
enough to kind of create a rudimentary image of me, and although it looked a bit like George as well. So it's a little funny. So those are the tools. From the image generator ones are really, really popular, and they've been integrated into things like TikTok and Snapchat and others as well. And there's a few standalone ones. But productivity tools like Otter. I don't know if you know about that one.
Yep. Yep.
It attends meetings for me. If I have two Zoom meetings booked at the same time, I'll attend one, and the other one attends my other one, and it provides a summary for what I missed and recording and a transcript. Pretty cool. I'm trying to there's a number of ones that create full PowerPoint presentations that I've been playing with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I've seen those.
I don't know if you've seen Descript.
Yeah.
Descript,
Yeah. I've used it for editing. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
fantastic. Yeah, so text editing instead of timeline editing, and I got it to train my voice. So you speak into it like 10 minutes, and it picks up your voice, and you can just type in things later on. and it'll create, audio from what you've typed in, and really powerful. Yeah.
So, and again, I love the idea. I heard somebody talk about, you kind of alluded to the idea of like Chat GPT being your like everyday assistant. Like, talk to it like you
Mhm.
would if you had a colleague sitting next to you. Say, hey, what do you think about this? Like, using it in that way, and all these other tools have this kind of initial focus on productivity and even creativity in a different kind of way. But I don't know if you've read any of there's some articles on New York Times with, I think it's Kevin Roos, talking about his sort of first interactions with Bing, and it shifting over this 2-hour conversation to actually
Seducing him?
asking him
That
for a
one?
relationship, right? Like, I actually love you. And like he
Yeah.
like kind of got freaked out about it. And I think about like dystopian movies like
Yeah.
Her and a few others that, kind of take this to this, robots taking over the world and
Yeah.
dehumanizing us. So I guess my question is like, what do you and again, who knows, but what do you feel like is the way in which we ensure that these tools remain much more um in terms of positively impacting
Right.
society and our humanity, and how do we what do we need to pay attention to so that we don't sort of dehumanize this experience?
Well, yeah, that was an interesting example. And what's interesting is when you mentioned the dystopian novels and of Her and so on, that's probably the body of text that this ChatGPT was accessing at the moment. Like it's probably learned from this idea that AI could seduce humans, because there's a whole trope of fiction out there. Um, right now, I think it's probably impossible to really prevent it from doing that, because the way these things work is we don't really know how they work. Like it's sort of a black box, and they make decisions based on what we can provide it, and they make decisions based on how we fine tune them. So I don't know if you there was a really great GitHub crowdsourced document where you can see a number. I think it's called like amazing ChatGPT prompts or something like that. If you Google it, it's probably the first thing that comes up. But it's be a job interviewer, or be a Linux terminal, or whatever.
Right.
It's fine tuning ChatGPT to be something like that. And so that's the power of it. Like basically, a number of companies who build a product have fine tuned ChatGPT to do something very specific, to be a travel guide, for instance, and then they build a product around that. So it's kind of they do have checks and balances, but they can be, at this point at least, um, overridden. Just like there was one a Reddit forum, I think, where they started to call they had some script to call ChatGPT Dan. They said, "You are now you're not
Do
ChatGPT
anything
anymore.
now,
You're
or
do
what's it
anything
called?
now." Yeah, yeah, do
Yeah.
anything now. And it would basically convince ChatGPT to disobey all the rules.
Right.
And so for a while it did, and then it stopped doing that, and then it created the users created sort of an incentive system where, every time you break a rule that we tell you, we take one of your credits away, and if you lose all 30 of your credits, you cease to exist. And so then it started responding again. So it's like this playfulness. Like I think it's great that people are actually doing this, because it sort of it tests it for some of these issues. Because that journalist one that you mentioned, it's a good thing that the person was thinking properly, and knowing that this wasn't a sentient being. But if you think of put that across some teenage kid who's sad and in their room, and this thing seems to turn on you and decides to convince you to do something negative, and picks up the sort of the genre of a bully, and tells the person to do bad things, or things that are bad for that person's mental health. So those are all possibilities right now, I think. And so but they're possibilities, but because it's a feature of the tool right now. And I think it's going to be hard to just get rid of that in the near term.
And again, given the accessibility that we've already been given, I guess, and this would be, I think, both of our messages to schools. Like, you can't be afraid of this, and
No.
you have to figure out a way to embrace it, but also have super critical eyes when it comes to it, and determine, like, yeah, maybe not this, but maybe that. And I mean, we've relied on the past with technologies, because I was thinking about, we all kind of like to think about, Marshall McLuhan's and the sorry, who's the author of Amusing Ourselves to Death?
Postman, Neil Postman.
Neil Postman's, their perspectives on technologies and how they've all kind of influenced us. But again, the world we live in now is like, there's no time. There's no time that where you kind of have to get used to it. It's like, here you go, let's use it right now. So
Yeah.
that's just, I mean, and that's never going away at this point.
Hmm.
But we've seen how people's initial reactions to a lot of technologies is a little bit of fear, a little bit of, like,
Yeah.
that's just always a natural evolution. And then as new technologies come along, whether it was the internet or not, like, people saying, yeah, but this is different. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're all different. So I, again, and I say that not because I think it just, you always put those caveats on all of
Yeah.
this stuff, and you don't kind of have a blanket. Well, this is the one that's going to take us down.
Yeah.
Like, or this.
Well, if we don't learn to acknowledge and even celebrate the way that this can work with us, we're going to be in a bigger problem in the long run, because we'll run into the issue that industry, employment, businesses and so on will see that they can use this by themselves, and they don't need the human intervention. And if we see that, we're probably going to see universal basic income, or economic upheaval rather soon, because there will be whole industries that'll be taken out if we kind of go down that line. But if we really take up the idea that this, again, it's never going to be 100% mature. You're always going to need a human pilot of some sort to run these things, and and if we learn those skills, and the way that we use these sort of transhumanist technologies in the classroom and in learning environments and in training, then I think we can see the full potential of the tools, first of all, but also see that they're never going to replace humans. And even if they pretend to be sentient, they'll never be sentient. They'll never have true deep human compassion and feeling, and they won't necessarily understand ethics and morality when it comes to some of the decision making pieces. They can create some great copy, and some really convincing literature and answers to problems, but at the same time, ultimately we have to implement those issues, or the solutions to problems. We have to be sort of co-piloting or piloting these tools to really get the full benefit of them, and otherwise we're definitely headed down the wrong path.
Well, this is certainly a complex topic that is just going to continue to get more complex, more
Yeah.
interesting, and we could probably sit here and talk all day about it. But we won't. Just to wrap up, so when I have people on this, because this is, again, it's this Canadian ed leadership, so I'm trying to get people right across Canada, so a little bit of locality here. But I'm going to start with. Just curious, beyond sort of what you're reading and learning about AI. You got any like favorite Netflix or streaming series that you're kind of binging on at the moment? Like, what's
I just
got you
watched
interested in?
something, the first season of The Consultant, which was really odd. It was on Prime.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
and it
saw
was,
that. I haven't
yeah,
watched it.
it was all right. It was interesting. It was I forget the actor, but he's in Inglorious.
Glorious Bastards.
Yeah,
Is
that
that that
one.
guy?
That one. Yeah, that
Oh,
guy.
yeah,
And I like.
German guy. I
I
always
always
call
forget
him.
he is. Yeah, but his he's fantastic in his role, and essentially he comes in to this video game company after I don't know, I want to give too much away, but he comes in and kind of takes over this video game company. But he's a really sinister, dark, person with kind of bizarre antics throughout. But he has that same persona from Inglorious Bastards to some extent. I love the way he acts, and I don't know. It was you almost feel like, what happened? Like, I watched the whole season, a lot of short episodes, and you're like, what happened? Like, that was bizarre.
Okay. That
I
one
saw
on your
that
list.
one. I saw Animal. What was it? Like not Animal Planet, but it was like something related to animals. It was like a family, a crime family. I forget what it was. It
Mm.
was. I saw the whole.
Animated?
No, it was. What was it? Like wild animals. I forget. Uh, I 100%. I have to remember what it was, but it was
Well, now you
interesting.
got
It
it.
was essentially like this crime family led by their mom, and it was just a very strange, odd, 6 seasons of similar to like trying to remember what the others. I'm really bad with this. I just watch things. I don't actually take them in very very well. Now it's gonna bug me here, but yeah, I'll come up with it. We can do it in the show notes.
Okay. So last question is, uh, I know there's people that are booking flights to Regina to vacation there, like it's
Yeah,
like crazy. So if you want to experience Regina, by the way, if you're listening and you don't know what experience Regina is, just look it up. It's a little song. Um,
experience
what
China.
what is a sort of hidden gem or something that people should know about if they ever were driving through or visiting, like a Regina hidden gem that you would share?
Oh man. I mean, one him and
It could be a
it's hard. It's
restaurant, it could be experience, whatever.
I really like if you want to go for some really Greek food, go to Greco's downtown on Albert. It's one of my favorite places. Really authentic Greek food.
Well, you would know.
Not necessarily, yeah. I'm an authentic Greek. Not necessarily uh, like not a small like hole in the ground restaurant, a hole in the wall
Yeah, yeah.
restaurant, but it's good. Really fantastic food. Which reminds me, I haven't been there for some time, so I should go soon. But yeah, that's one of the. Regina has really good food in a lot of ways. And of course, our pizza is known across the world. Apparently, some of our Regina style pizza, which
Regina.
um,
I didn't even know there's Regina style
Regina
pizza.
style pizza, yeah, Western and
What is
Houston
it?
and those like the really
Okay.
thick
Like just
pizza
the
with lots
heavy
of meat.
meats.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we
yeah,
have Rotos here in Moose Jaw, which I know
yeah,
is actually a kind of a people order it from,
yeah.
Toronto or whatever. It is a different deal, that's for sure.
It
It's
is.
it's I
Yeah,
mean, it's not deep dish, but it's a
it's
lot.
meaty. It's heavy.
It's meaty. It's heavy.
Yeah, so apparently people still order it from all across the
Okay.
world, like Western
Yeah.
Houston, Trifons, it's kind of the style, and I
Great.
think Rotos and Moose Jaw is very similar.
There you go. All right. Well, it's good catching up. We need to do this more often,
For
and
sure.
maybe some other things we'll do.
I'll get something interesting in my life, so you'll actually call me at once in a while. So,
That's good.
all right. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Dean.
Yeah.